Hello, my name is Corey Johnson. I am the library liaison to the Roots of Contemporary Issues program. And welcome to this video about LRA number 2, the third part in the series. This one is about finding history journal articles. So you'll see in front of you the template LRA for library assignment number 2. And so I'm going to just scroll down and beyond the introductory materials to the assignment, past the history monographs or books segment that we looked at in the last video, and to question number 2 here about finding scholarly history journal articles. As you might guess, I'm not going to read this text to you, but you'll want to be sure that you read it yourself and know all of the ins and outs. You need to find ultimately, and I'll highlight it here, 2 scholarly journal articles on your topic, and they need to be published within the last 25 years. So that's ultimately what you're looking for. Realizing that 2 is a minimum. If you find more than 2, that would be great as well. Ultimately, these LRAs expose you to a number of different information formats, and to complete the assignments, you have a finite number you need, but as you're finding things, keep all of these sources in a place. Ultimately, when you go to write your paper, you might find that you use a number of different books or articles versus other kinds of things. So keep track of all of it. Embedded in the template LRA are links to pertinent databases, and you can see 3 of them here. I'm mousing over 1, JSTOR, Project Muse, and then historical abstracts. And I would use those in that particular order. JSTOR is certainly the most comprehensive and probably where you want to start. And I will show you that in just a moment. But I also want to say here that there's also a link, as is the case with all of these LRAs, to the library guide for the particular LRAs as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, this See Part 2 database specific video tutorials link, which goes into the library guide, which looks like this for LRA number 2. It takes a minute to render these YouTube videos, but there are a number of different short videos here that supplement this video I've created that you might want to take a look at, including the specific one you can see here about JSTOR, and then some other basic tips and ideas for getting through the work of LRA number 2. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom and just talk for a minute about characteristics of history journal articles. So you'll see here at the very bottom, I've highlighted it in blue. When you go into JSTOR, you can limit to history journals, which I will show you. So you really don't need to do a lot to know about how to recognize them per se, but you definitely want to be covering these 3 things. Your article should preferably be from a history journal. The content of it should cover deeper history. In some classes, that's pre-1980 history. In other classes, it may be pre-1990 history. Sort of depends on your particular section and your instructor. But at the same time, it needs to be published more recently. In fact, I just said a few moments ago, in the last 25 years, so basically from 1997 to the present. So I'm just going to repeat that one more time because it's sort of a hard concept oftentimes to get your head around. And that is that with these history journal articles, we want the content of those articles to cover deeper history, while at the same time, we want the articles themselves to be published more recently. And published more recently because hopefully the way ideally things work in academia is that when someone writes on a topic, they consider what others have written before. And so they sort of build on a house of knowledge. So the more recent things might ideally represent our most current thinking about the topic, and that's why that can be particularly helpful to find recently published articles. If I go back, click back here into the LRA template, I'm going to go ahead and click on this link to JSTOR. If you're on campus, you'll be automatically authenticated into the database. If you are off campus, as I am right now, you will be asked to authenticate. So I'm going to go ahead and type in my network ID and password. It's the same thing you use to get into your course spaces or into my WSU, for example, those same credentials. So here is what the search interface looks like. I'm going to go ahead and use a topic that I believe will fit the basic mold for a proper topic in RCI. I'm looking at the historical development of education systems in the country of Kenya. So I'll make this a little bit bigger, but you can see here I've used 2 text lines for my search. In the first one, I've put in Kenya, and the second one, EDUCAT or school. So first to the Kenya piece, obviously that's the geographic place that I'm looking at. I've got an asterisk or shift 8, the star, if you will, on the end of that word, so I can get Kenya or Kenyan. Then EDUCAT or school, I have the or, capital OR between those two, because oftentimes the things you're studying, there may be synonyms or words that mean basically the same thing, and you want to be able to capture all of those various words. Again, education and schooling, meaning essentially the same kind of concept. And then I put the asterisk on so I can get school, school, schooling, educate, education, educational, etc. So I can also see here on the right-hand side that it defaults to what's called all fields. So I could narrow that down, and I typically start this way so that I can efficiently, hopefully, get to the most relevant items, limiting to the title of the articles under the presumption that the words in the title of any document are the most important words that succinctly describe what it's about. So I'm actually hoping that I'll get a bunch of articles that have education or schooling and Kenya in them. So, and by the way, putting these on separate lines is important as well, or actually typing out and between them, because I don't want just anything about Kenya and I don't want just anything about education. I want things that are about both of those concepts at the same time. As I go down this interface, you'll see under select access and access type that it defaults to content I can access. Go ahead and change that to all content, because you can see everything that JSTOR offers, even though some of that content we might not subscribe to, but typically you can click on a button called Find It at WSU, and then you can get that content from a different provider we subscribe to anyway. So just a tip there to go ahead and go to all content. Your item type, you definitely want to limit to articles. There are other kinds of materials in this system, including books and book reviews, letters to the editor, all sorts of things that are not a scholarly journal article. So you'll want to avoid those. Under language, you may want to limit to English. Know that in RCI, you can use all language skills you have. So if you speak other world languages and can read in those languages, great, you can do that. There are a whole lot of world languages represented in this system. So again, if English is the one you're going to need to use, then it might make sense to limit to that. I want to limit to the last 25 years. So I'm going to go ahead and put in 1997 to 2022. I don't even actually need to put in the 2022. It'll go to whatever the current year is. And then there are these things called journal filters, and you can see there's a whole list of collections of journals by subject matter. There are 4 of them related to history, and history is going to be your most important thing to limit to, history journals. So those 4, let's see if I can find them here. There's architecture history right here. I'm mousing over. There's art history here, which are obviously pretty specific. If your topics are also within art or architecture, those would work. There is a general history grouping right here, which you definitely all are going to want to click on. And then the 4th one under history is history of science and technology, which again may not be helpful. So that's your top priority. Now, given my topic, there are other groupings within this list that probably make sense. I'm looking at education. So, and there is a group of education titles here, so I could click on that. I'm also looking at the country of Kenya. So I could also limit to African studies, and that would be perfectly appropriate. So you'll see that for topics, oftentimes there are multiple groupings you might want to select. However, understand that the requirement still exists that whatever article you select or set of articles needs to cover that deeper history, which of course is more likely going to be the case in a history journal. Okay, so with that whole setup, I'll click the search button, the submit button in this case, and get my set of results. So there are 47 items in the list. And as I scroll down, obviously, I will make some sort of assessment about whether they would work for my topic. The first one says the effects of primary school quality on school dropout among Kenyan girls and boys. Now, this one gives me the flavor right away. It's from a journal called Comparative Education Review, that this is certainly about Kenyan education, but perhaps it might be about very contemporary, like, was published in May 2000, so it could be exclusively about the 1990s or something. So you'd have to check this out to make sure that it gives a good historical context. That would be my concern here. The second one, political versus civic education in colonial and independent Kenya. Well, great. This one definitely is going to be historical. So that's going to be, that box is definitely checked. Now, whether or not civic and versus political education is going to be helpful for my topic is another question. But this one certainly would have promise and merit in many regards. And, I can scroll down. Of course, you get the point, right? You're looking at all of these to see, here's one that actually has a date range in it, 1844 to 1930, from Anglican and Episcopal history. So the word history is right in the journal where this comes from. So this would probably work. Other things are more generic, like this one, gender and education in Africa. Well, that may work. It may be not focused enough on Kenya. This one, improving the quality of education, Kenya's next challenge, implies again that it may be looking more at the future, which we don't want to be looking at for a history research. So anyway, these are the things that you need to think about. Now, the last thing I want to show you in this video is just the simple bits about getting these articles. So obviously, if you wanted this article, you just click this download button to your machine. It'll provide you with a PDF and you're good to go. I also want to show you that there's helpful citation information provided here as well. For RCI, we are using Chicago style. So you can see here that if I click on this, here's the Chicago style information that I could use, click copy, and put that into my own documents. So that's fine. The only thing that you want to remember, though, is if I go back over here to the library guide, if you get citation information out of a database, whether it's JSTOR or any others, you probably are going to want to confirm with the actual University of Chicago guide, which I have reproduced within your LibGuide. So here I am in the LibGuide, and I'm looking at Chicago style. So if I click on that, it will show me examples from a variety of different areas, including, if I scroll down here far enough, articles in an online journal, which would be the case here. So it lists a variety of pieces of information which are important. So that concludes this video about finding history journal articles as part of LRA number 2. So good luck on your research. And as always, go Cougs.